On today's Gangster Profile, Cornelius Connie Hughes, one half of the feared Hughes brothers of Charlestown. Connie Cornelius Hughs, the most handsome man in Charlestown. Well, maybe not, but certainly one of the most lethal ones. One half of the feared Hughes brothers, two of the most dangerous men the Boston streets have ever seen, Connie and his brother Steve, aka Little Stevie, caused most gangsters to have sleepless nights in the 1960s. Strangely enough, I can only find one picture of Connie Hughes on the internet. Now, after the McLaughlin brothers were completely wiped out, the Hughes brothers not only survived, but were out hunting for their enemies instead of just being prey. They were the toughest and most feared of a dangerous group, aka the Charlestown Mob. In the midst of the bloodletting that occurred during the 1960s gang war, the Hughes brothers were real killers. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors and behind-the-scenes editing about what really unfolded during the 1960s gang war, but there's no debate that the Hughes brothers were ice-cold killers. Connie's first caller came at age 19 when he and a 21-year-old George McLaughlin beat and robbed two Boston and Maine Railroad employees. The take was a whopping $8. Total, not a piece. 50 days after his arrest, Connie would say la vie for 5 to 7 and Georgie 5 at Concord State Prison. While incarcerated, Connie would make underworld connections and harden to a life of crime. After his release, he worked as a longshoreman in the ILA. A longshoreman is a person who unloads freight from ships. The ILA was the International Longshoremen's Association, the labor union, and labor unions had access to large amounts of cash, especially in the 1950s. So of course the Charlestown Hoods used their violent reputation to extort the ILA and the entire waterfront. In these days, Charlestown was a thriving port where thousands of tons of freight were being shipped. There was also the Charlestown Navy Yard, which hired a lot of men and had sailors with their ships. Downtown Charlestown was full of dive bars at this time to service all these thirsty men, and they were full day and night. The Charlestown mob used the Mystic Tower Tavern as their base of operations. The owner did not like it, but he had little say in the matter. They went behind the bar and helped themselves to drinks, sometimes helping themselves to cash from the till. B-Towns were handed out regularly, and inside the bar and outside on Chelsea Street. Their associate, Thomas Ballou, was informed by the owner that they had a $600 tab. He said, "Let me know when it gets to 1,000 and I'll kill you." They were said to have completed murder contracts for the Patriarca family and the Genovese family out of New York City, probably for anyone who had money. One of their major moneymakers was loan sharking, and there were plenty of drunk men on the waterfront that needed loans. But if you borrow, you better pay it by Monday. Right, 50? It was written in a confidential report that in regards to Charlestown, especially the Hughes brothers, people in Boston underworld were extremely afraid of them. It's worthy of mention that the Charlestown guys were never informants or had dealings with the FBI. It's probably why they lost the war. FBI agent Paul Rico, probably one of the most corrupt FBI agents in law enforcement history, hated the Charlestown guys and seemed to be on a mission to destroy them. The Charlestown guys called him homophobic slurs and swore that the stories they heard about him were true. Rico went as far to ask Frank Salemi for a throwaway gun to plant on Georgie McLaughlin. Rico planned to execute Georgie upon his arrest but did not carry through because he claimed not all the agents were on board. All the Charlestown guys were hard drinkers, but Connie was an especially hard drinker. It was said they had a very tumultuous relationship with his wife. There was a strange situation on March 15th, 1966, where after a night of drinking in Revere, Connie and Stevie were either ambushed in Connie's Malden driveway, or as other stories say, a squabble between two brothers possibly over Connie's wife. Either way, the end result was Stevie being shot in the stomach 5 times. Connie's wife, asleep inside, was awakened by the gunshots and ran outside screaming. Connie fled the scene, leaving his brother dying in the street. Stevie was rushed to the hospital and after surgery survived. The first attempt on Connie came as a result of Jimmy the Bear Fleming being shot 9 times. Jimmy's friend Barbosa was enraged, and even though Spike O'Toole most likely shot Jimmy, Barbosa marked Connie Hughes for death. Barbosa hid in the bushes outside Connie's Malden home for 7 nights, but he never materialized. Joe was picked up and thrown in Charles Street Jail. While there, he bumped into a scared-to-death Anthony Stathopoulos, who informed Joe that on the 1st of every month, Connie received a veteran's check and cashed it right away. Out on bail, Barbosa put Chico Miko on it. While waiting outside Connie's bank at the North Shore Mall, Chico saw Connie emerge. He jumped out and covered the license plate with a rag, and then he told Guy Frizzy to follow Connie. Amico sat up in the back seat, and with an M1 rifle aimed out an open window, they followed him home on the expressway. Amico kept telling Frizzy to pull alongside, but he couldn't line it up right. When Connie pulled off on the Chelsea exit, he noticed a tail, and at the last minute he crossed the center line and sped off back on the expressway. Amico squeezed off one shot, breaking the back window, but missing Hughes. That night, Barbosa and crew went to Chelsea to finish the job. Joe posted up in an alley outside a bar that Connie frequented, with Amico and Patsy Fabiano outside in the car. A guy walked in the alley and Joe said, "Beat it." Amico signaled Joe that it was Hughes. Joe came running out and jumped into another car. He told Amico and Fabiano to block off the street, and Joe would go up in the other car and flush him out. As they were creeping up the street, a car came flying out backwards at them, and in haste Joe's rifle jammed. In the back of the car with Connie driving was Stevie Hughes spraying at them with the rifle. Joe unjammed the gun. Shit, they were gone, down a side street. Joe looked down to see a bullet had come through the door and stuck in an armrest an inch from his side. During the spring of 1966, Connie mostly hid, but was seen lurking around Dearborn Square in Roxbury, clearly looking to kill Steve Fleming. And Connie was also looking to kill Howie Winter, who after Buddy McLean's death was Winter Hill's number one. Buddy was killed on Halloween 1964, 3 years to the day after he killed Bernie McLaughlin in Charlestown Square. Buddy was killed a couple weeks after Punchy McLaughlin was executed. You had to give it to these Charlestown guys. They were clearly going to lose the war, but they went down swinging. On May 25th, a Hill sympathizer saw Connie at the Store Club near the Mystic River Bridge. He was probably hunting Howie Winter and getting drunk. When he left before dawn, he picked up a tail. He had a habit of driving slow to avoid being tailed, but it made him an easy target. He paid his toll and got onto the Mystic River Bridge, headed through Chelsea. There are iron rails on either side to keep you from going off the bridge, but it locked you into a south and northbound lane. Suddenly, a car from behind sped up and drew abreast of him, most likely driven by expert driver Jimmy Sims, and Winter Hill Lord High Executioner Joe McDonald in the back seat produced an M1 rifle and peppered Hughes' car 15 times, hitting him twice in the head. They sped off, and Hughes' car careened into an embankment and burst into flames. A passerby stopped and tried to save what he thought was a passenger from the flames. He didn't realize until after pulling out the body that it was the corpse of one of Boston's deadliest men. In typical mafia fashion, Jerry Angiulo and Larry Bayonne headed to Connie's funeral and paid Stevie respect. They gave Connie's family the customary $5,000 parting gift from the world. Only one more man needed to die for the gang war to be over. And until that happened, nobody in Boston would be sleeping. If you like this story, hit the like button and leave me a comment. And hit that subscribe button. It's actually pretty easy. I'll play more content coming soon. Make sure you have a great day.